Falcons had a great opportunity to put a stranglehold on the NFC South. Instead, Baker and the Bucs come roaring back late in the game to knock off Atlanta 29-25 in a game where offense, defense, and special teams all have some blood on their hands and cost the Falcons this game. So we'll dive into each section of those three elements and talk about where blame can be assigned and whatnot, as Atlanta had a very frustrating loss, right? When you look at the final stats from this game, Desmond Ridder, 26 for 40, 347 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 bad interception, this time inside his own 20-yard line. So we got it through Desmond's head. You can't fumble or throw picks in the red zone. You also can't do it inside your own 20-yard line. That's just not going to happen. We can't do that. Can't fumble in the end zone. That led to a safety. So offensively, Atlanta's offense spotted the Bucs plenty of points in this. Meanwhile, let's give some credit to Drake London, though. I mean, a career-high 172 yards, 2 unbelievable catches in the fourth quarter, one which set up a temporary go-ahead touchdown, and the other was a Hail Mary that came 2 yards short. And I don't understand how you throw to someone who's not in the end zone in a Hail Mary, and as a receiver, how you don't get in the end zone on a Hail Mary. But let's look at Atlanta's offense, which it's the same story. It's not like it's actually pulling teeth, right? There are a lot of worse offenses out there. They put up 434 yards of total offense. If I told you before the game they're going to score 25 points, you probably feel pretty good about this team winning. But unfortunately, Atlanta's defense, which has played very well the last couple of weeks, granted against Tim Boyle and Trevor Siemian and the Jets and Derek Carr and the Saints, they ran into Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and the Bucs, and yet again, the Falcons had a lead, under 2 minutes to go, and the opposing team drove 75 yards down the field, and a Cade Otton 11-yard touchdown reception was the difference maker. So, and then we'll get to special teams next. Hear how the two teams stack up stats side by side. Atlanta doing a much better job offensively, right? 434 yards to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 290. But unfortunately, Atlanta's defense at the end crumbled. They made some nice plays earlier on throughout the game and whatnot. Atlanta's offense put up some yards and put up some points, but an interception by Ridder at an inopportune location, and then a safety in the end zone, definitely not going to help. And then there's Younghoe Koo, who we'll talk about in just a moment. But really quickly, I do want to talk about our sponsor for today, which is Prize Picks. So thanks to Prize Picks, I've had an absolute blast watching football this year, as I always do, but especially this year, because I am locked in on games I don't have a horse in the race for. So with Sunday Night Football rapidly approaching as I'm filming this and as you're watching this, here are my selections. I'm taking the more on Dak Prescott's passing yards, taking the less on Jalen Hurts' passing yards. I'll also take the more on Tony Pollard's receiving yards, and I like the more on DeAndre Swift and Brandon Cooks combined for half a touchdown. Just need one of those two guys to score a touchdown. So if you like my selections, hop aboard, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. Now, because I love you guys, I put that link in the comment section and the description of today's video. Now, let's peek at the updated playoff picture before we talk about Younghoe Koo and some injury news on Jake Mathews. Atlanta, New Orleans, and Tampa Bay are all at 6 and 7. 4 games to go. It's anyone's race, right? I mean, the Bucs currently have the tiebreaker over Atlanta and New Orleans for a temporary playoff spot, but the Falcons, the Bucs, and the Saints all have relatively easy schedules coming up. Atlanta goes to Carolina next week. Then they have the Colts come to town, which, by the way, is the toughest game in the last 4, and that one's at home. Maybe the Saints game on the end. Then they go to Chicago and go to New Orleans, which a few weeks ago, that didn't look so bad. But the Saints won today, and the Bears beat the Lions today. So those 2 road games to end the year when Atlanta has not been good on the road this year could be a backbreaker. They really have to take care of business next week in Carolina and at home against the Colts. So maybe going 1-1 in the last stretch there, 3-1 altogether, putting them at 9-8 will be enough to either get a wild card spot or win the division. But let's talk about Desmond Ridder for a moment. He was 26 for 40, 347 yards, half of that going to Drake London, 1 touchdown to Kyle Pitts, and then 1 interception in the first half, which, by the way, Atlanta lost by 4. Younghoe Koo missed 2 first-half field goals. The guy was money. The guy just didn't miss kicks. And unfortunately, 2 very long kicks don't go their way. And if they make one of those 2 kicks, well, it's 29-28. Atlanta's got the ball, and they're in field goal range to end the game. The Falcons could walk that one off 31-29. But unfortunately, like I mentioned earlier, offense had their fair share of failures. Safety allowed for a second straight game. What the fuck's up with that? Who gives up 2 safeties in 2 straight games? And then an interception from Ridder. And then you've got the defense letting Baker and the Bucs drive down the field. Another go-ahead touchdown late in the game, like the Vikings game earlier, like the Cardinals game earlier. And now you have the special teams missing 2 very important field goals where, sure, if you go 1 for 2 there, you're probably winning this game because you're kicking a much easier field goal instead of going for a Hail Mary at the end of the game. Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson had an okay day on the ground. Like Algier, 9 carries for 40 yards, just over 4 yards a pop. Bijan, not as effective on the ground. He averaged over 3 yards a carry, but he had some really good plays out of the backfield as a receiver. But Drake London, 10 receptions, 172 yards. I'm just a big Drake London fan, so yes, it's a loss, and no one's going to throw a party for your individual day. But Drake London, just the catches he makes, he is such a talented player. I mean, he really is a gifted wide receiver that it doesn't matter who the quarterback is, what the offense is doing. Throw it up to Drake London, chances are good things are going to happen. Kyle Pitts continues to go on a quietly good run. Like he had a good game against the Jets last week, I thought. This week he has a nice 36-yard touchdown, 3 grabs, 57 yards altogether. So Pitts and London getting going. Offense put up 25. Everyone's got blood on their hands because the offense also spotted the Bucs defense 2 points in the safety. So if it's 25-27, you only need a field goal to win. But if Younghoe Koo makes one of those 2 field goals in the first half, you only need a field goal to win. If the defense makes a stop at the end of the game, instead of letting Baker drive 75 yards down the field, you don't need a field goal at all at the end of the game or a touchdown at all at the end of the game. So offense, defense, special teams are all guilty today. No one is spared. Now, before we get on out of here and let you guys enjoy Sunday Night Football, will the Falcons make the playoffs? Yes or no? I want to be optimistic, but man, at home against the Bucs, an opportunity to really separate yourselves from them in the division. Instead of going to 6-7, going to 6-7. Instead of going from 6-7, go to 7-6, and have Tampa be 5-8. Really remove them from the NFC South race. But we have 4 games coming up, 4 big games coming up. And I can't wait for Week 18 at New Orleans because that Falcons-Saints game very well could be for a playoff spot. So buckle up. But once again, the final, Tampa Bay wins at 29-25. Jake Mathews, I'm bad at my job. He left the game in the first half with a knee injury. They were already short Drew Dahlman along with Caleb McGarry. So Atlanta went from having a very healthy offensive line to they were playing in the second half with 3 of their 5 starters not in the game. And credit to Tampa Bay, they did a lot of good things to capitalize on that. They made the plays they had to make. Hopefully Jake Mathews, who has been an Iron Man, he hasn't missed a start in God knows how long, well over 150 games, I'd say, does not miss serious time. I'm looking for an update. Don't have one. Probably not going to get one until tomorrow when Arthur Smith speaks to the press. But, yeah, hopefully Jake Mathews does not miss much time. All right, that's going to do it for us on today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. If we get more subscribers, I can get more studio space, and I can get you guys more content.